Shocked, the orange-haired girl questions what was just said.
Frozen in disbelief, she drops her snack as the gravity of the words sinks in.
The blonde man lowers his gaze, trailing off mid-sentence.
He offers a gentle, radiant smile amidst a backdrop of golden flowers.
Recalling a dark reputation, the girl asks if he refers to the emperor known for his questionable collections. After she describes the emperor's harem of pretty boys, the man cheerfully confirms her suspicion.
Annoyed by his oblivious joy, the girl snaps at him for smiling in such a dire situation.
She demands to know if he truly understands the danger of the location mentioned.
Pointing an accusing finger, she scolds her brother to be more cautious of his own handsome face. She is momentarily overwhelmed by his dazzling appearance as he sits calmly on the sofa.
He remains cheerfully oblivious to her concern.
A formal title identifies the blonde man as Carrion Wignac, heir to a famous swordsmanship house. Despite having no blood relation, they became family 3 years ago.
In a flashback, the girl reveals she is a reincarnator who struggled as an orphan in the snow. As she searches for food, she notices a group of men approaching a boy in a blue cloak. Looking into his eyes, she wonders if the young boy is silently pleading for help.
Determined, she reaches down and picks up a simple wooden stick from the ground.
A surge of golden energy envelops the stick as she prepares to fight. Using skills from her past life, she defeats the attackers, an act that led her into House Wignac. Back in the present, Carrion stops her and questions the accuracy of her memory. He teasingly suggests she only followed him because she was smitten by his looks. A mental image reveals the truth. She followed him specifically because he was handsome. Carrion reflects on the 3 years that have passed since their first meeting. He tells her not to worry because he is older, though she reminds herself that her mental age is 29. Munching on a cookie, she remains unconvinced and continues to worry about him. She notes how dense he is, completely unaware of how others are attracted to him. A memory shows him innocently returning bundles of flowers to admirers on her command. When she asks about the meeting, he reveals the emperor wants to see him tomorrow. That
horror fills her mind as she imagines a monstrous emperor devouring her brother.
She clenches her fist, determined to repay the man who practically saved her life. A firm resolution forms to protect her brother's purity at all costs. Surrounded by flowers, she vows to be his protector against any threat. She acknowledges the difficulty of the task, given the opponent is the emperor himself.
Pacing the hallway, she frantically searches for a way to prevent the encounter.
She stops in her tracks as she watches him walk toward the garden doors. He continues his stroll, seemingly unaware of his sister watching from behind. To her eyes, he appears completely defenseless against the world.
A devious glint appears in her eyes as a new plan takes shape.
She decides that the most direct approach will be the most effective. Her plan is simple: knock him unconscious with a single blow to keep him home. Apologizing mentally, she stalks him from behind a pillar while gripping a training sword. A quick dash signals the start of her ambush. With a fierce battle cry, she leaps forward to deliver the strike. Korean suddenly crouches to examine a flower, causing her to lunge harmlessly over him. He stands to chase a butterfly, inadvertently dodging her second desperate swing. From a balcony, 2 soldiers watch the chaotic scene, mistaking her failed ambush for rigorous training. They marvel at the orange-haired girl's monstrous strength and dedication to the sword. Panting heavily, she stands confused as her target remains completely unharmed. She grows increasingly frustrated that her expert strikes keep missing an oblivious target. Startled by a sudden pain, Carrion reacts while his sister watches him from a distance. Rosie rushes toward Carrion in the garden, frantically asking what happened. Carrion explains with a teary face that a bee stung him. Rosie urgently demands to see his injured finger. She scolds him for getting hurt the second she left him alone. She emphasizes how much she worries about his safety. Rosie carefully wraps a bandage around Carrion's finger. While bandaging him, Rosie admits she doesn't want him to meet the emperor. Carrion questions why she is so opposed to the meeting. He asks Rosie if he truly seems that unreliable to her. Rosie gazes up with silent, green-eyed sincerity. She instructs him to target an opponent's weak spots if bothered. She tells him to call her if the opponent is stronger. They celebrate their agreement with a happy high five. A magical tracking symbol glows on the bandaged finger. Night falls over the grand mansion and grounds. Rosie decides to take a precautionary measure just in case. She reveals the bandage curse allows her to track his location. Rosie attempts to sleep, hoping the tracker brings peace. Despite her plans, she finds it impossible to relax. Rosie prepares to move through the dark house. She decides to put him to sleep using a spell. She believes a bedridden brother will deter the emperor's summons. Sneaking into the room, she prepares to keep him asleep. Rosie mentally apologizes to Carrion for the ambush. She lunges with a blanket, promising it won't hurt. Rosie is shocked to find the bed completely empty. A sudden gust of wind chills the vacant room. Rosie stands bewildered by her brother's sudden disappearance. Under the moonlight, she urgently wonders where he went.
Mist swirls in a dark and cold setting. Water pours over a fallen, blood-stained attacker.
Carrion sits calmly atop a pile of defeated assassins. Carrion remarks on the intensity of the violent welcome. Carrion warns that his princess will be mad if he's hurt. Narration mentions staying at the Faisal estate for a summit. Rosie worries about looking suspicious wandering alone at night. A drunken guard is seen hiccuping nearby. Rosie hides in the bushes, hoping for a bit of luck. She moves stealthily while searching for her missing brother. She encounters a massive iron gate blocking her path. She moves slowly to avoid making a single sound. Rosie spots a rabbit and prepares to catch it. A white rabbit suddenly leaps out and startles her. The gate rattles loudly as she accidentally makes contact. The guards are instantly alerted by the metallic clang. Rosie realizes with horror that she has been caught. Rosie notes that the guards look wobbly and confused. The guard angrily rejects the idea of doing a hula dance. Rosie protests as the guards suddenly leap into an attack. Rosie contemplates whether she should actually fight back. Startled, she lets out a sudden jest. Rosie loses her balance, but a firm hand catches her with a solid grip. The blue-haired man catches her, advising her to be more careful. He notes how his knights have acted quite rudely. He holds Rosie steady and asks if she has any injuries. He offers an apology for his guards, who are seen bruised and dying. He introduces himself as Luis Faisal, the head of the Faisal estate. Rosie pens over his name, feeling like she has heard it before. Seeing her sword, Louise asks if she belongs to House Wignac. He dismissively tells the young girl to return to her room and behave. He demands to know the location of Carrion Wignac. Rosie sharply questions why the Fizzlehead needs to see her brother. She argues that private meetings between house heads and heirs are illegal. Louise remains pensive while Rosie grows increasingly suspicious. He claims Carrion is a friend, but Rosie senses a lie. She recalls her brother's bright and cheerful personality. Louise looks away, deep in gut. He threatens to report her suspicious activity if she keeps hiding the truth. He begins walking away, leaving her in a panic. Desperate, she calls out for him to wait. Fearing a scolding, she admits that Carrion is no longer in the estate. Louise is visibly annoyed that the situation has become so complicated. A sharp smirk plays on his lips. Rosie realizes that the Faisal family possesses unique transformation powers. Legends say they can shift into animals for combat. They are known for turning their own bodies into powerful weapons. A clever plan begins to form in Rosie's mind. She asks Louise about his specific transformation. They discuss the ability of Faisal members to change forms. Louise identifies himself as a Black Panther, a fierce spirit looming behind. Excitement fills Rosie as she realizes his speed could find Carrion. She celebrates joyfully, leaving Louise completely baffled by her behavior. She asks if he intends to search for her brother immediately. Her small hand tightly grips his blue vest. She pleads with him to let her join the search. Surprised, he listens as she mentions a group targeting Carrion. Determination shines in her eyes. She refuses to let go. Louise insists an heir of House Wignac can handle himself. He argues that her fussing would only hurt Carrion's dignity. He walks off, questioning the quality of her education. She suddenly lunges and catches him off guard. She clings to his back, promising to be useful. He tells her to let go as a magical circle glows. A brilliant flash of light signals the start of a transformation. Louise growls in frustration at her stubbornness. The cracked floor of a dark dungeon. Carrion waits in the torchlight, expecting a search party soon. He anticipates a long lecture as rhythmic footsteps approach his cell. Standing amidst the fallen attackers, Carrion dismisses the red-haired woman's suggestion that his actions are a declaration of war, claiming he was merely acting in self-defense. He presses his boot firmly onto a defeated man's head while asking if the Emperor is truly pursuing him. The red-haired woman, Kilgis, observes him silently, wondering if his handsome face is the reason the Emperor wants to snatch him away. A sharp sound echoes as Carrion walks past the pile of unconscious bodies, unaware that his orange-haired sister is watching from a distance. Kilgis imagines Carrion being added to a massive harem of 300 boys, suspecting he is being offered up as a sacrifice to the Emperor. She looks visibly shaken as she considers the possibility of a powerful star relic being involved in the Emperor's plans. Noting her nervous reaction, Carrion wears a knowing smile and concludes that his suspicions have hit the mark. Lush red roses bloom in the background, adding a heavy and dramatic atmosphere to the confrontation. A sudden quick dash sounds as a large black panther sprints through the moonlit foliage. The panther, which is the transformed head of House Fissel, Louise, addresses the young Wignac girl with a mocking tone. Clinging tightly to the panther's back, Rosie smiles and asks what he is so grumpy about while he gallops through the forest. She admits that because he was so condescending, she assumed he was much older than he actually is. Rosie continues to tease him, pointing out that Lord Fizzle himself is still in a period of physical growth. An angry vein throbs on the panther's head as he threatens to dump her off his back right then and there.
He growls in frustration, questioning what she thinks the head of a transcendent house actually represents. Rosie ignores his indignation and asks why he transforms so suddenly, questioning if his stamina is lacking. Louise reflects on his need for more intense training and admits he only brought her along to keep her from causing trouble alone. He narrows his eyes, recalling how she had already tried to sneak away to find her brother once before. Rosie cheers about their joint mission to find Carrion, while Louise sternly tells the energetic girl to sit still. They emerge from the trees under a starry night, noting they have already covered a significant distance. Louise complains that her weight is slowing him down and that they would be much further along without her. Rosie takes offense at his lack of chivalry, while Louise scoffs at her referring to herself as a lady. Her attention is caught by a sudden, faint rustling in the distance. They stop at the edge of a cliff, looking out over a sprawling town illuminated by the blue moonlight. Rosie realizes she has reached the correct destination as she senses her brother's mana emanating from the town below. They stand together on the high vantage point, surveying the quiet streets and stone buildings of the settlement. Rosie grows concerned, wondering how they will ever find him in such a wide and populated area. A sudden realization causes her to gasp and stop in her tracks. She recalls a memory of her brother promising that she could always call for him if she encountered someone stronger than herself. With renewed speed, the panther leaps down the rocky slope toward the town. Rosie urgently tells him to hurry, while Louise grumbles about being treated like a common carriage. A look of pure determination fills the young girl's eyes as she closes in on her target. A sharp, resonating crack echoes against the stone floor of the dark dungeon. Carrion stands confidently in the torchlight, mocking the Emperor for being foolish enough to reveal the relic's location. Kilgus stands stunned, realizing that Carrion purposefully leaked his own mana to lure her into this encounter. A mysterious and ethereal glow begins to fill the oppressive darkness of the underground chamber. Kilgus realizes with a sinking feeling that the man before her is far more dangerous than she ever anticipated. She scoffs at the reports of the Wignac heir being mild-mannered as she prepares a glowing red artifact in her hand. Identifying herself as the head of House Kilgus, she declares that she cannot allow him to leave with the star relic. She summons a massive glowing red magic circle, filling the room with an intense and threatening light. Kilgus vows to use her power to completely erase his memories of everything that happened today. Before she can react, Carrion suddenly appears behind her, calmly stating that her plan would be a problem for him. He whispers into her ear that the star relic originally belonged to him, sending a surge of panic through her. A chilling silence follows as Carrion levels his sword at her throat, coldly stating that everyone's time eventually runs out. A menacing shadow falls over his face as he prepares to deliver a final, decisive blow. Kilgus is paralyzed by the sheer intensity of the killing intent radiating from the blonde man. A sharp gasp escapes her as the cold steel of the blade brushes against her skin. Deep in the shadows, a cloaked figure looks into a mirror and notes that the girl still has a long way to go. Kilgus is completely overwhelmed by Carrion's monstrous aura, unable to comprehend the level of power he possesses. She trembles in fear, realizing that attacking the head of a transcendent house like herself could spark a massive war. The red-haired woman trembles as the blade's cold edge reflects her target's glowing red gaze. Kilgus' hand clenches the glowing pink jewel on her dress as the tension reaches its peak. A cold voice casually dismisses the weight of the current situation. Korean's sword slams into the floor, shattering the stone with a violent burst of violet energy. Kilgus stands frozen in fear as the blonde man suddenly appears directly behind her. He leans in and mockingly reveals that he was only playing a joke. Wearing a pleasant smile, Carrion admits that he actually shares her distaste for conflict and war. Kilgus stares ahead in complete shock, unable to process his sudden and jarring shift in tone. Looking down at the pile of defeated enemies, Carrion suggests they simply overlook everything that happened today. He looks at his bandaged fingers, predicting that his sister will be arriving at any moment. Amidst a soft bloom of roses, the blonde heir is lost in a moment of quiet, pensive thought. Beads of sweat roll down Kilgus' face as she realizes how truly dangerous this man is. As she considers pulling back, Carrion stops her by calmly calling out her name. With a charming smile, Carrion proposes that they reach a mutual agreement or deal. He walks past the heap of bodies, insisting the arrangement will be beneficial for her as well. Dust and haze settle over the underground chamber as the confrontation draws to a close. The area is finally cleared as Carrion concludes his thorough cleanup of the dungeon. He playfully considers giving himself a few scratches to make his struggle look more convincing. A sudden, frantic shout for her big brother echoes loudly through the stone hallway. Carrion's eyes widen as he recognizes the familiar voice approaching his location. Rosie bursts into the room, her expression filled with desperate worry for her brother's safety. She rushes toward him at full speed, frantically asking what happened in the dark chamber. Her small hand reaches out to touch his arm, desperately checking to see if he is injured. A look of pure relief and affection softens Carrion's face as he gently greets his sister.
He dramatically claims he was terrified being separated from her for so long.
With tears welling in his eyes, he pulls Rosie into an intense and overwhelming hug. The two siblings share a moment of deep emotional reunion amidst a backdrop of flowers. Carrion clings to Rosie like a needy child, while she looks completely overwhelmed by his sudden clinginess. A pained groan sounds from the background where the brown-haired man sits slumped against the wall. Rosie points at the man and asks if he bullied her brother, which Carrion shamelessly confirms. Carrion spins a tall tale about being harassed and dragged away by the Emperor's knight. He claims he only acted in self-defense before getting hopelessly lost in the dungeon. Rosie listens intently, while Luis is seen in the distance recovering from his exhaustion. Luis notices a strange sound and prepares a magic circle, but Rosie claims she heard nothing. Luis asks why she didn't call him sooner, but Carrion doubts the panther would have actually helped. Carrion hugs Rosie again, thanking her and declaring she is the only person he can truly trust. Lord Fiesel walks away in frustration, muttering about how ridiculous the siblings are acting. He stops and demands a clear explanation of what Carrion was actually doing in this place. He questions the traces of sword aura everywhere, but Rosie defensively asks why he is grilling her brother. Rosie promises her brother that she will handle all the difficult explanations for Lord Fizzle. She playfully covers Carrion's ears, telling him to ignore the bad words coming from the Fizzlehead. Carrion waves a friendly hand and greets Luis cheerfully, asking how he has been lately. An angry vein throbs on Luis's forehead as he rejects Carrion's overly casual and familiar attitude. He dismissively addresses Rosie as a runt, leaving the young girl startled and confused by his grumpiness. Louise observes her closely, suspecting she is far more than a simple disciple based on her behavior. Rosie proudly boasts about being a genius swordswoman who received the Wignac name at a record age. Louise sees through her obvious lies, while Carrion complains about the area becoming too noisy. Carrion feigns a sudden, painful headache, causing Rosie to panic over his deteriorating health. She realizes with a start that her brother hasn't had any sleep at all recently. Worried for his well-being, she asks if he feels like he might collapse or become sick. Rosianne pauses to consider something her brother recently mentioned. Carrion stands close behind the young girl, resting a hand on her shoulder. He advises Rosianne to stay at the estate and ignore the invitation she received. Rosianne is incredulous, questioning how he can make such a suggestion with a straight face. She thinks back to how confidently he spoke yesterday, only to end up being kidnapped. The young girl throws her hand up and shouts her refusal. She firmly declares that she intends to accompany him. Lord Owen sits at his desk, watching the exchange with a look of quiet exhaustion. Rosianne clasps her hands together and begs her father to let her pell. Looking down at the open invitation on the desk, Lord Owen asks why she feels the need to go. She promises that she will ensure nothing goes wrong this time while her brother stands by awkwardly. Lord Owen closes his eyes and tells Rosianne that she must remain behind. He then instructs Carrion to leave the room first, leaving Rosianne panicked at the prospect of being alone with him. Carrion pauses at the door, questioning why they need to speak without him present. The blonde man looks back at his sister, who appears increasingly nervous. He reaches out and firmly takes Rosianne's hand, prompting her to ask what is wrong. Lord Owen's red eyes narrow as he watches the siblings' display of defiance. He calls out Carrion's name as he stands and approaches him. A sudden, sharp sound resonates through the quiet office. A flash of movement catches the light as the tension in the room breaks. Lord Owen delivers a sharp strike to his son's head, telling him to stop defying his father. Carrion remains silent, his expression unreadable after the physical reprimand. Rosianne leans in and whispers to her brother, asking if he is all right. Her eyes light up with sudden hope as she asks if he is being serious. Lord Owen sighs and rubs his forehead, muttering about how pathetic his own son is. Carrion heads for the exit without a word, prompting Rosianne to ask why he isn't saying goodbye. The girl stands confused, wondering what has gotten into her brother today. Lord Owen calls her name, and she immediately snaps to attention. He looks down at her and asks if she understands why he brought her to live here as a disciple. Rosianne begins to tear up, admitting she has no idea at all. She imagines a harsh scenario where he tells her she only has a place here because of Carrion. Lord Owen lets out a long, weary sigh. He reaches out and places a steadying hand on the girl's shoulder. Rosianne looks up, startled and confused by his sudden change in demeanor. They stand together in the center of the sunlit room as the atmosphere softens. Lord Owen stares at her with a pensive, serious expression. He warns her that Carrion is actually the one she truly needs to be wary of.
Rosianne is stunned, unable to fathom why she would need to watch out for her brother.
Owen bluntly points out that she is even more susceptible to a handsome face than others are. She privately admits Carrion is a pretty boy, but insists he would never take advantage of her. She laughs off the suggestion, her mood turning bright and cheerful once more. While Roseanne promises to scold her brother if he misbehaves, Owen wonders if she is truly that innocent. He pats her head, explaining that Carrion is stronger than he looks and she shouldn't just follow his every whim. He admits Carrion becomes unstable at times and asks her to stay by his side as much as possible. Roseanne beams with pure joy, realizing she has been given the responsibility she wanted. She looks up with sparkling eyes, double-checking if this means she can really go with him. Lord Owen tells her to hurry before Carrion starts sulking, and she runs off with a happy shout of thanks. A gentle smile finally crosses the dark-haired man's face as he watches his disciple leave. Roseanne rushes through the hallway, delighted that she received approval instead of the scolding she expected. She bursts through the door to find her brother, while a final thought notes that Lord Owen was already aware of the situation. Carrion is overcome by pain, and Roseanne vows to keep worrying about him regardless of what others say. The orange-haired girl gazes ahead with wide, concerned eyes. He groans in discomfort as Roseanne softly calls out to her big brother. In the lavishly decorated bedroom, Roseanne checks on Carrion as he rests on the chaise lounge. She places her hand on his forehead, alarmed that he is burning up with fever. Roseanne realizes with a start that her brother's experiencing another one of his critical flare-up days. Carrion manages a weak smile, confirming that he is suffering from the dreaded star fever. An ancient lore reveals that star fever is a rampaging condition caused when a transcendent body cannot contain immense power. Roseanne worries that Carrion's symptoms are far worse than the typical cases she has heard about. She holds his hand tightly, promising to sing a soothing lullaby to take away his pain. A massive, glowing magic circle appears behind Roseanne as she prepares to soothe her brother's suffering. Carrion admits that her lullaby feels like a magical spell that makes all his agony vanish. Privately, the young girl admits she is actually using spellcraft to ensure her brother feels better. Feeling comforted, Carrion asks Roseanne if she will continue to stay by his side from now on. With a bright and cheerful smile, she promises to stay with him forever as long as he needs her. Carrion finally drifts into a peaceful sleep as Roseanne watches over him. She decides they cannot keep repeating the cycle and resolves to discuss a better solution with him later. Her delicate shoes click against the floor as she determines there is something urgent she must handle. The afternoon light filters into the grand, empty bedroom after Roseanne departs. Carrion's red eyes flutter open, reflecting on her promise to stay with him as long as he needs. A soft floral aura surrounds the blonde man as he rests in quiet contemplation. In the town square, citizens dance and celebrate under the warm glow of the sun. Someone in a brown cap and boyish attire adjusts their hat, hiding their identity. A pair of white socks and tan shoes step purposefully across the cobblestone street. Roseanne presents her new disguise to a bewildered Carrion, who can barely recognize his sister. Carrion is speechless, covering his mouth in shock at her sudden and complete transformation. Roseanne asks if her new boyish look is handsome enough to sneak into the royal harem. She winks playfully, looking confident in her brown vest and matching cap. Carrion is visibly flustered, repeating the word harem with a look of utter disbelief. Roseanne explains her theory that the object they seek might be hidden deep within the harem walls. Narration notes that if one wanted to hide an unstable star relic, they would choose a very secret location. It is suspected the relic is stashed in the most guarded and secluded part of the castle. Carrion's power manifests as a violent red energy as he moves toward their destination. A mischievous smirk plays on Roseanne's face as she contemplates the success of her plan. Carrion looks dignified but deeply uncomfortable in his formal suit and oversized shoulder bow. Roseanne points ahead, urging him on while he looks back at her with a skeptical expression. In a cute, simplified moment, Roseanne tells herself she must practice hard to avoid messing up her role. She compares her usual appearance to her new boyish disguise, wondering how her brother still recognized her. A sudden stray volleyball strikes Roseanne right on the head with a sharp thud. She rubs her head in pain while watching the boys who accidentally hit her celebrate in the distance. Infuriated by their rudeness, Roseanne shouts that they should have apologized to her first. She crosses her arms and huffs about how poorly behaved children are these days. Carrion gently pats his sister's head and asks if she is all right after the painful impact. A woman carrying a basket walks past them, chuckling at the siblings' dramatic behavior. Roseanne's eyes light up with surprise as she notices something unexpected in the street. The siblings share a joyful moment, posing together with peace signs amidst a sparkling background. Carrion hugs his disguised sister, admitting that he simply cannot win against her stubbornness. A voice from behind interrupts their moment, announcing it is time for Carrion to head to the summit. Lord Owen's red eyes narrow as he demands to know the location of his disciple, Roseanne. He points directly at the boyish figure, asking for an explanation of who this stranger is. Roseanne resolves to protect her brother by using a disguise to look stronger. The orange-haired girl proudly shows off her boyish attire. Lord Owen looks at her with a sweat-dropped, skeptical expression, admitting it is somewhat reassuring. Rosianne celebrates her success, feeling confident that even her master was fooled. An aerial view captures the sprawling, sun-drenched estate. Lord Owen explains that only heirs attend the summit, while Rosianne agrees to remain behind. Carrion reassures his sister with a bright, encouraging smile, telling her not to worry. A cheerful voice calls out to Carrion as a silver-haired man appears. The Emperor expresses his joy at meeting Carrion again amidst a floral backdrop. Carrion greets the ruler of Delphian, while Rosianne notes the Emperor's youthful appearance and calls him a pervert. The Emperor offers a humble apology for his previous disgraceful behavior. He smiles warmly, suggesting that his true intentions were simply misunderstood. A sudden slide sounds as the Emperor takes Carrion's hand, shocking the disguised girl. The Emperor proposes they find a quiet place to speak at leisure. He leans closer to Carrion, maintaining a firm grip on his hand. As a spinning sound starts, Rosianne panics over the Emperor's suggestive choice of words and his tastes. Terrified Carrion is being targeted. Rosianne rushes forward and demands to go with them.
The Emperor pauses, curiously observing the boyish figure who just interrupted them.
Rosianne politely explains that her brother is too occupied with the summit and tries to intervene. She looks up with wide eyes and asks the Emperor to take her instead. Her request echoes through the courtyard as they stand before the Grand Palace.
The Emperor wonders if she is also a child of the Wignac family.
A quick ping rings out as she confidently introduces herself as N. Wignac.
The Emperor realizes she is the child the Wignac household adopted years ago.
A soft hum sounds as he scrutinizes her face with a strange intensity. Rosianne laughs nervously while silently warning the Emperor to stop staring so pervertedly. The Emperor asks Carrion for permission to borrow his little brother for a while.
A quick glance from Carrion shows his hesitation to let his sister go.
Sparkling with determination, Rosianne non-verbally pleads for her brother to trust her. Carrion closes his eyes, sighing in defeat at his sister's persistence. He places a hand on her shoulder and asks the Emperor to take care of her. The Emperor orders his guards to ensure their privacy as they had inside. A creak signals the door closing as the guard acknowledges the imperial order. As their steps tap against the floor, Rosianne realizes she is now alone with the Emperor. A distressed cry escapes her thoughts as she worries about being isolated with him. The Emperor startles her by suddenly confirming her name, and she nervously responds. He smiles playfully and tells her there is something very nice waiting ahead.
Rosianne force laughs and tries to hide her mounting dread.
While they walk, the Emperor discusses the history of the 3 missing star relics. He notes that the lost relics have never been recovered since the Great War. A dismissive huff sounds as Rosianne thinks he likely possesses one of those relics himself. Ancient lore describes star relics as weapons born from the purest celestial power. History shows a delicate balance between houses, though the greed for power remains. Rosianne suspects that this Emperor is driven by the same hunger for authority. She vows to expose his wicked scheme and protect her family from his influence. Her gaze sharpens with the resolve to stop the Emperor from exploiting her brother. She determines to safeguard both Carrion's purity and the powerful star relic. A steady step takes them closer to a set of ornate, towering blue doors. The Emperor stops and offers a cryptic, lingering smile. A low boom echoes as they arrive at the entrance to a mysterious inner chamber. A low, deep rumble sounds as the floor begins to shake beneath the disguised girl. Her yellow-green eyes widen in shock as she reacts to the unexpected transformation. A sharp, high-pitched scream rings out as the massive doors swing open to reveal a blinding golden light. A voice from within the brilliance commands her to show her face. She realizes with a start that the Wignac star relic was hidden here all along. A soft, airy sound follows her cautious steps as she enters the radiant room. She notes that her body is suddenly reacting strangely to the intense power in the air. A quick tap sounds as a pair of hands suddenly reach out and grasp her chin. A woman with long blonde hair and golden eyes leans in to scrutinize the intruder. The woman gazes intensely into the girl's eyes, examining her with mysterious interest. A resonant, echoing sound fills the chamber as the star relic's true form is fully unveiled. The blonde woman tilts the girl's head back, marveling at her features, while the girl's orange hair spills out. Panicked, the girl realizes that her disguise has been completely seen through. The scene shifts back to the summit, where a grand white tower rises above the forest. Regina, head of Kilges of Spellcraft, begins to address the gathered leaders. The heads of the 4 transcendent houses sit around a table, identified by their titles and names. Dorian, head of Layla of Healing, makes a thoughtful sound as he prepares to speak. Owen of Wignac asks if the discussion concerns the Resurrection Crystal, Layla's legendary star relic.
Dorian looks down in shame, admitting that there is a truth he has long hidden.
Narration explains that the Resurrection Crystal was stolen from House Lila 12 years ago. Regina slams the table with a loud bang, demanding to know why the loss was kept secret. A sharp clatter sounds as Dorian bows his head, explaining they failed to find it alone and now seek help. Regina sighs in frustration, finding it unbelievable that such a critical matter was hidden for 12 years. Louise points out that Kronos of Elswa possesses a prophetic eye that should have seen this. A soft breath escapes Kronos as he begins to respond to the inquiry about his power. Kronos reveals his scarred, closed right eye and notes he might have known something if the crystal hadn't vanished. The leaders look on in shock as Kronos explains a beast attack damaged his eye. He admits his plan was to use the crystal's healing power on his eye when the time was right. Regina is stunned that 2 relics were lost at the same time, while Owen sighs in defeat. Owen crosses his arms, appalled that the heads of the great houses failed to protect their legacies. Regina observes that the timing suggests the same person is responsible for both thefts. Owen turns to the room and asks if anyone has a suspect in mind. Carrion remains silent and pensive as the weight of the revelation hangs over the summit. A voice from within the palace chamber begins to ask for the girl's true identity. The blonde woman sits regally, exuding a sense of ancient and divine authority. The disguised girl bows nervously, making a small sound of distress as she tries to hide her fear. She is relieved the Emperor was fooled, but is shocked that the star relic saw through her disguise. A small, soft poke sounds as the blonde woman points a finger at the girl's chest. The woman leans in aggressively, making a quick gesture that leaves the girl flustered and confused. The girl's eyes go wide in disbelief as she realizes her secret is no longer safe. She acknowledges the relic's power, but resolves to keep the truth of her time travel hidden. A startled cry escapes her as she stumbles backward, overwhelmed by the woman's proximity. The woman declares that there is a specific condition to be met to earn her favor. She looks down at the girl with a knowing and mischievous expression. The blonde woman stands with crossed arms, her presence filling the golden room with light. Baffled, the girl looks on with wide eyes and question marks as the situation grows stranger. The blonde woman explains her desires with a look of intense, playful curiosity. The girl realizes the harem exists because the star relic is obsessed with handsome men. A sharp focus returns to her eyes as she wonders if this bizarre obsession is her opportunity. The woman crosses her arms and asks if the girl knows any pretty boys who fit her tastes. Anne confidently declares that she will personally bring the person they seek. A narrative shift reveals that House Lila has reached a desperate impasse. Dorian bows his head in profound distress, begging for assistance in finding the lost star relic. The heads of the great houses look on as Dorian admits they have no suspects for the theft. Cronus agrees to help, noting that he cannot restore his damaged eye without the relic's power. Regina and the head of House Fizzle commit to investigating the situation within the Empire. Lord Owen of Wignac lets out a heavy sigh as he agrees to search the kingdom of Appear. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Dorian offers a tearful thank you to the gathered leaders. Regina's eyes narrow as she ponders the fact that every relic vanished exactly 12 years ago. She observes Carrion's pensive silence, her thoughts turning toward a darker suspicion. A chilling realization grips her as she recalls a warning about the fatal danger of the Wignac name being revealed. Regina remembers the extreme skill required for brainwashing, suspecting only one person could be capable of it. She notes the uncanny resemblance between the Wignac disciple and a figure she once knew. Images of Roseanne and a mysterious woman with long orange hair overlap in her mind. Regina reflects on the tragedy of a girl who was supposed to have died 12 years prior. A look of sheer disbelief crosses her face as she wonders if someone has actually returned from the dead. She calls out a name from her past as floral patterns surround her bittersweet memories. The scene returns to the present as the Emperor and the disguised girl walk through the palace. The Emperor greets their arrival with a cheerful and energetic exclamation. He leans in playfully, asking Anne how her encounter with the star relic went. The Emperor offers an apology for his deception, explaining he spent years gathering boys to soothe the relic to no avail. Anne remains cautious, thinking that the Emperor is unlikely to remain silent about this revelation. She internally scolds the Emperor for his behavior while acknowledging the relic's own perverted nature. Her steps tap softly against the floor as she questions why the relic was kept hidden from them. The Emperor notes with a sweat drop that the head of Wignac will surely be furious once the truth is known. He admits that he initially viewed the relic as a significant opportunity for the Empire. He describes the weapon as something far more overwhelming and dangerous than the other house's relics. Known as the Great Annihilation, the relic holds the terrifying power to erase everything in its path. A bead of sweat falls as the Emperor admits that his initial ambition was quickly replaced by fear. He worried the balance of power would shatter, leading to a second continental war, a fear Anne believes is genuine. Anne asks why he chose to target her brother, the heir, before turning to her. A vision of a serene Carrion highlights the innocence the Emperor was willing to exploit. Looking deeply regretful, the Emperor offers a sincere apology for tricking the two of them. En stands with her arms crossed, silently judging the weight of his confession. The mood brightens instantly as the Emperor regains his usual cheerful expression. He enthusiastically grasps her hands, expressing his excitement that they will now get along splendidly. A startled cry escapes En as the Emperor tells her to call him Uncle from now on. He invites the entire house to stay at the palace for the night since it has grown late. The Emperor wonders if the relic took a special liking to her, prompting a nervous laugh from the girl. The grand white palace stands quiet under a starry night sky. A soft, rhythmic tap sounds as a pair of dark shoes move stealthily through the corridor. Rosienne puts a finger to her lips, urging silence so their movements go unnoticed. She and Carrion stand before the massive blue doors, with Rosienne offering a silent apology to the Emperor. She tells Carrion that she never intended to keep her hands off the relic forever. A view of the estate at dawn mirrors the scale of their impending task. Carrion looks toward the horizon, his expression filled with a mix of wonder and determination. He tells his sister that she is truly amazing for uncovering the truth while he was stuck at the summit. Rosienne whispers her promise to bring him directly to the star relic to reclaim their legacy. She internally dismisses the excuses of the adults, focused solely on her brother's future. Rosienne resolves that Carrion must become the relic's master so the Empire can no longer hold power over them. Rosienne and Carrion stand together before the massive ornate palace doors. Carrion reflects on finally discovering the hidden location of the legacy. He asks his sister if she feels nervous as they approach the threshold. Rosienne reassures Carrion that the relic will surely take a liking to him. She reaches up to pat her brother's blonde hair with a fond gesture. A bright, confident smile lights up Rosienne's face. Carrion looks back at her with a gentle and warm expression. A mechanical click sounds as they reach for the glowing door handles. The doors creak open, revealing a thin sliver of intense, radiant light. Regina and Dorian are horrified to find that Rosietti's body has vanished from its casket. The dark wood of the empty coffin sits in the silent shadows. Dorian reasons that a body couldn't have turned to dust in only 12 years. He notes the old, forced markings that show the coffin was opened long ago. Regina listens as Dorian concludes that the body must have been stolen. The grim realization of the theft hangs heavily over the two leaders. Dorian is visibly outraged by the horrific desecration of the dead. He points out the suspicious timing between Rosietti's death and the relic backed. Regina clutches her head, suspecting a deep connection between these dark events. She walks away, still pondering the hidden motive behind the crime. Narration details Rosietti's rare genius and the timing of the crystal's disappearance. The mystery deepens as a child looking exactly like Rosietti suddenly appears. Regina refuses to believe that all these events are merely coincidental. She feels an urgent, growing need to confirm the truth of her suspicions. Regina is gripped by the shocking possibility that the child is actually Rosietti. A heavy, thrumming sound suddenly echoes through the graveyard. Both leaders turn in shock as the air begins to vibrate with energy. Regina senses a massive surge of mana erupting from the distant sanctuary. The grand white palace looms silently under the dark, starry night sky. The relic is appalled by Carrion's presence, while Rosienne presents him as promised. The blonde woman recoils, claiming she smells something deeply unpleasant on the man. Rosienne's hand balls into a tight fist as her anger begins to flare. She looks absolutely indignant at the relic's rude and insulting behavior. Carrion's aura shifts into something dark and menacing as he smiles behind his sister. Rosienne is startled as Carrion steps forward with a cold, focused intent. He lunges toward the blonde woman with an overwhelming display of force. She lets out a sharp tisk of irritation and alarm at his sudden aggression. A loud crackle sounds as Carrion seizes the glowing white sword in his hand. Rosienne calls out to her brother in a panic as the energy intensifies. Her eyes widen in pure disbelief at the violence of the unfolding scene. Electrical energy crackles violently around Carrion's hand as he grips the hilt. The golden light flares brilliantly as he maintains his iron-willed hold. Carrion coldly warns the relic to submit, while she remains fiercely defiant. The relic refuses to serve him, leaving Rosienne frozen in deep worry. Debris falls from the ceiling as Rosienne fears her brother is in mortal danger. She watches him closely, noticing that his behavior has become unsettlingly strange. Rosienne realizes this dark, smiling version of Carrion is not the brother she knows. A sharp crackle of energy erupts from the center of the fierce conflict. The relic mocks Carrion's ambition as he stares her down with chillingly cold eyes. An ancient magical circle appears, heralding a period of impending collapsed chaos. Carrion orders the relic to behave herself with a dark and sinister smile. A sudden light erupts as Rosienne reaches out, crying "Wah!" in surprise. Rosienne hugs Carrion from behind as he grips the glowing sword. Roseanne looks up at Carrion with concern, noting he is acting weird and asking if something happened. Carrion grips the sword hilt tightly, calling his sister's name as an ugh of exertion escapes him.
The relic spirit yells "sk" as she calls Roseanne a lying little bat.
Pointing to herself in confusion, Roseanne asks if the relic is calling her a liar. A sudden "kawa" escapes Roseanne as a blast of energy knocks her backward. Roseanne rushes toward Carrion as he falls, her steps sounding a quick tap-tap as she shouts for her big brother. The relic spirit accuses Roseanne of lying twice and warns her that she will pay the price. The glowing sword rests peacefully among golden roses. Roseanne begs for a moment, complaining that she's been called a liar this whole time. Roseanne stands alone, watching Carrion bow his head in the hall.
Roseanne tells the relic no one on the planet could satisfy its tastes, though the spirit retorts she isn't talking about his face.
A massive, dark purple aura erupts behind Carrion as the relic spirit demands Roseanne look properly. Roseanne gasps in shock at the terrifying dark reveal. The relic spirit explains that Carrion has been in this dark state from the very beginning. Deciding to use Roseanne for now, the spirit blames Carrion's condition on a mysterious external force. The relic spirit commands Roseanne to use her latent power to purify the corruption. Roseanne points to herself with a look of pure, startled disbelief. Looking at Carrion's glowing red eye, Roseanne worries that her brother is completely out of it. She observes that he doesn't look like he will snap out of his trance anytime soon. Her hand goes to her mouth as a sigh escapes, reflecting on how her plan for him has failed. Roseanne resolves that the suspicious dark presence must be eliminated immediately. She realizes a power like a guardian star is dwelling within her. Roseanne declares she will bring her brother back to normal as a golden light, boom, sounds through the room. Glowing yellow marks appear on Carrion's wrists with a magical cring sound. Roseanne approaches with the sword, her footsteps making a soft tap-tap as she prepares to purify him. Carrion turns his head with a dazed hush, calling out his sister's name in confusion.
The sword is plunged into the dark puddle with a squelch as the spirit mocks the corruption for trying to seduce him.
Carrion winces in pain as the light and darkness clash around him. Carrion reaches out with a tap, asking Roseanne if she knows how sad she made him. An of pain escapes Carrion as Roseanne tells him to stop, promising her tap-tap steps will bring an end to this. The dark puddle on the floor vanishes completely into the air. Roseanne lets out a relieved whew, telling her brother that he is finally safe now. Exhausted, Carrion collapses onto the hard floor and closes his eyes. A desperate cry for "Big Brother" rings out against a background of white flowers. Roseanne stands over her fallen brother in the center of the silent hall. Narrative text notes that stealing another house's heirloom has pushed it to the brink of going berserk. Dorian looks absolutely outraged as he demands an explanation from the Emperor. The Emperor calmly tells Dorian to settle down, mentioning that he is actually holding himself back from reacting. Dorian firmly declares that the star relic is returning to House Wignac where it belongs. The Emperor lets out a heavy "gwa," admitting that he cannot argue with Dorian's decision. A bright and happy "yes" escapes Roseanne as she celebrates the news. Dorian looms over a tiny Roseanne, who can only manage a nervous and shaky "okay" in response. Roseanne stands alone before the massive, ornate blue palace doors with a quiet "shh." She wonders why Dorian isn't angry with her for sneaking into the sacred sanctuary. With a soft tap-tap, Roseanne decides she would rather go check on Carrion's recovery. The relic spirit yells a frustrated "wah" at the sword while Roseanne watches, vowing not to let him off easy. Roseanne crosses her arms, wondering why Carrion remains so wary even after the dark entity is gone. Carrion lies quietly in his large, elegant bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. Carrion senses a dark presence in his room that mocks his vulnerability regarding his sister. A serpentine shadow looms over the bed, threatening to eliminate the girl to simplify Carrion's life. Carrion defiantly sits up and challenges the entity to follow through with its threat. He warns the dark snake that it will not escape unharmed if it attempts to harm her. Roseanne stands firmly with her hands on her hips and a look of intense focus. The blonde spirit labels the dark entity as the most evil thing in the entire universe. She explains to Roseanne that she has only temporarily repelled the corruptive force for now. The spirit warns that the darkness is merely lying in wait for another opportunity to strike. She predicts that the entity will eventually return to bring about a complete collapse. The spirit urges Roseanne to remain vigilant because massive chaos is approaching the world. Roseanne suggests that they should actively hunt down and destroy the threat immediately. The spirit agrees with the idea, but admits to being distracted by something she saw earlier. She enthusiastically recalls seeing several impressively built men on her journey, proving that even a legendary relic has time for some high-quality window shopping. Roseanne is annoyed that she is the one who has to be responsible while the relic is distracted. She finds it deeply troubling that a star relic is so genuinely fearful of this specific monster. Roseanne wonders exactly when this darkness first managed to attach itself to her brother. She prepares to catch the entity the next time it appears near Carrion, refusing to let it get away. Carrion's voice echoes through the silent room, commanding the entity to remain hidden for a while. He notes that the stars have sensed them, while the purple snake dismisses his concerns. The snake reminds Carrion of his near-death experience and demands he remember their shared destiny. The entity emphasizes that their two souls and bodies are now irrevocably entwined as one. It warns that any physical harm Carrion suffers will be shared by the entity through their link. The snake threatens to harm the girl if Carrion continues to resist its influence. Carrion ignores the threats and brags about his sister's perfect manners to the annoyed snake. The dark entity laments being bound to such a single-minded and obsessed individual. It suggests that Carrion should take advantage of Rosienne's lack of control to steal the star relic. Carrion remains quiet and introspective, seemingly rejecting the entity's proposal. He concludes that the star relic is better off in Rosienne's possession for the time being.
A sinister smile crosses Carrion's face as his crimson eyes glow with a dark intensity.
He realizes that Rosienne might be the only person in existence capable of destroying him. Carrion finds comfort in the belief that she will always protect and love him unconditionally. The shadow questions if her love would survive the revelation of Carrion's true nature. Carrion hears a soft shh as someone approaches his door in the quiet film. A maid enters the room, her footsteps echoing as she brings a tray of hockey.
A dark mist swirls with a soft shh as she announces the order for his recovery.
The maid carefully prepares the tea while Carrion watches her silently from the bag.
Carrion stares at her with a chilling gaze that sends a visible shiver and a sharp shh through her.
He asks if his presence is frightening her, causing her to stammer in visible fear. Carrion warns her to handle the tray carefully before dismissing her from the room. The terrified maid apologizes and rushes out with an affright. Rosienne stands in the hallway pondering the truth of the rumor she has heard. She playfully peeks her head into the room with a soft shh to check on her brother. Carrion's expression shifts with a sudden shh as he notices her standing in the doorway. He smiles with genuine warmth and greets his sister by her nickname. Rosienne urges him to focus entirely on his recovery without any pressure or worry. When she tries to inquire about the sanctuary, Carrion apologizes for his hazy memory. He lets out an ugh of discomfort, claiming that his memories of the event are fragmented. Rosienne quickly tells him not to strain himself trying to remember the painful details.
Carrion secretly wonders how much damage the chaotic entity has truly caused to his mind.
He stares intensely with a quiet shh as he considers the dangerous path ahead of them. Carrion asks what happened, but Rosienne realizes he has no memory of the event. Rosienne reflects on her choice to treat him secretly to avoid shaking him with terrifying news. She waves and encourages Carrion to focus solely on his recovery for now.
Carrion touches his head wearily, looking tired and slightly out of sorts.
Chibi Rosienne worries about his weak constitution and pale complexion. She transitions the conversation by sharing a thought that has been on her mind. Rosienne suggests they find him an elixir once they return home. Carrion identifies the elixir as the medicine needed to suppress his star fever.
Chibi Rosienne notes that his fever is worsening as he approaches adulthood at 15.
She explains that he must eventually stabilize his mana without relying on her lullabies. Rosienne details how the elixir will stabilize him and protect him from chaos. She asks if he wants the elixir held in a ring or a necklace. Carrion starts to speak, but pauses for a moment of hesitation. The siblings share a quiet, intimate moment surrounded by glowing white flowers. Rosienne listens intently, her green eyes fixed on her brother. They sit together in the bedroom as the conversation continues. She calls out to her brother with a serious expression.
Rosienne shakes him urgently, insisting that he needs an elixir immediately.
Carrion playfully suggests that Rosienne should simply be his elixir. Rosienne immediately and firmly rejects his nonsensical suggestion. She warns that turning a living person into an elixir is far too dangerous. Rosienne cautions that if the person elixir dies, the user suffers star fever eternally. She recalls studying various tragic cases that ended in disaster from such attempts. Carrion points out that she will also need to find her own elixir soon. He proposes that they serve as each other's elixirs to maintain their stability. Rosienne finds his persistence unusual and is flabbergasted by the romantic implication. She thinks of how such eternal oaths are meant for lovers, not siblings. Placing a hand on his shoulder, she prepares to correct his line of thinking. Rosienne clarifies that such a bond is inappropriate for family members to share. Carrion looks away with a somber and slightly dejected expression.
Rosienne wonders if he is sulking, but hopes her explanation was sufficient.
She stands alone in the room, reflecting on the weight of their conversation.
The scene shifts to the exterior of the grand, ornate white palace.
Later, Rosienne sits at her vanity and brushes her long orange hair. A servant informs Rosienne that the head of the house has summoned her. A sudden clatter sounds as she stands, realizing it is time to face her family.
Noticing the dark-haired man's cold gaze, she fears an impending scolding.
Rosienne resolves to be completely honest about what happened the previous night. She is surprised to find several other heads of house gathered in the hallway. An elderly man with long white hair and an eye patch offers a formal greeting. A blonde man in glasses stares at her intensely, making her feel uneasy and ignored. A quick patter sounds as she hurries past them to find Lord Owen.
She finds Lord Owen standing on the balcony, his back turned to her.
Lord Owen greets her calmly as she approaches him in the bright morning light. Roseanne asks if he is specifically referring to the star relic in his questioning. A vision shows a goddess-like figure near a muscular man in a grand hall. Lord Owen questions the relic's presence at the training grounds, while Roseanne hides her true motives. Lord Owen asks her to explain exactly what transpired the day before.
Roseanne looks out over the balcony, preparing to share the truth.
Lord Owen contemplates her claim of using the relic to defeat the collapsed chaos. Roseanne eagerly confirms her account to Lord Owen. She reacts with sudden, wide-eyed confusion. Lord Owen expresses relief at their safety.
He privately wishes the boy remained unconscious. He dismisses her query with casual indifference.
Roseanne worries about the attacker's timing. Lord Owen vows revenge on the attacker.
He offers her a reassuring head that. He maintains a calm, serious expression.
Lord Owen warns of political opposition. She acknowledges the complex power dynamics. Roseanne realizes why they stared coldly.
Lord Owen pledges House Winyak's protection.
Roseanne is deeply moved by his words. She joyfully acknowledges Lord Owen's prowess. Quick, steady footsteps sound along the corridor. A heavy thump sounds as she collides. Roseanne freezes in absolute wide-eyed terror. The blue-haired man offers a polite apology.
Roseanne recognizes her past lost killer. A recruitment page features several adventurous characters. A title card announces a past duel.
Spectators debate the potential duel winner.
Alfian declares the duel's final blow.
Young Alfian unleashes a massive magical attack. Rosietti is struck by a lethal spell.
A soft patter sounds as blood dits.
Rosietti questions his intent to kill her. A heavy thud sounds as she falls. She identifies Alfian Kilgis as her murderer.
Present-day Alfian offers a chillingly kind smile. Memories of her rebirth surface with bitterness.
She resents his bloody path to power. Roseanne suddenly notices a familiar object.
She is shocked to see her planetarium. Alfian compliments the young girl's keen eyes.
Alfian explains the utility of the planetarium.
He dismisses the artifact's significance to outsiders.
Roseanne seethes with internal, silent fury. Alfian teases her for her intense gaze.
Alfian invites her to touch the artifact.
Her hand trembles as she reaches out. She realizes the danger of touching it.
Roseanne quickly declines the man's offer. Alfian accepts her refusal with polite grace. He offers a final, lingering apology. Alfian walks away with a casual life.
Roseanne watches the thief leave with her.
She vows to reclaim her stolen artifact.
Receding footsteps echo down the grand hallway.
A quick click sounds as the light blue-haired man returns to the groom. The red-haired woman asks how his mission proceeded. The light blue-haired man notes that the girl reacted to the necklace. She confirms that the girl's recognition of the planetarium proves she is Rosietti. The red-haired woman asks the gathered heads for their next move. The blonde man admits he was initially skeptical of the news. He recalls her claim about the resurrection crystal being inside the child. He thought the claim was impossible until a sudden realization struck. He recalls sensing the crystal's power emanating from the orange-haired girl.
The man with the eye patch questions how the stolen relic ended up inside her.
The blonde man points out that she has mastered the Great Annihilation.
He asserts they must reclaim the relic to restore the balance of power. Lord Owen tracks the heads of house to their secret meeting place. The group reacts with sudden shock to Lord Owen's arrival.
Lord Owen stands calmly before the other heads of house. The man with the eye patch confronts Owen about the child's resurrection.
A soft sounds as Owen feigns ignorance while privately fearing their discovery.
Someone furiously threatens to forcibly extract the relic from the child's body. The man with the eye patch warns against any attempt to harm her. Lord Owen pledges that House Winyak will not stand by if she is touched. The red-haired woman highlights the extreme danger of the Great Annihilation relic. She questions if House Winyak will maintain their alliance given the child's power.
A quick tap sounds as she demands that Owen surrender Roseanne.
She insists that the girl be handed over to the Empire's care. The red-haired woman repeats her firm demand to take the child.
Owen rejects her demand while she clarifies her proposal for the girl's travel. She proposes the girl travel annually between the Empire and the Kingdom.
Owen dismisses the plan as a hostage-taking while the blonde man interjects. The blonde man reminds Owen that the child holds two powerful relics. He asserts their right to oversee her until the crystal is recovered. He warns Owen against making enemies while suggesting they ask the girl. Lord Owen vows to respect whatever decision Roseanne makes for herself. The brown-haired man reflects on the shock of her true identity. He remembers when a kind woman first saved him long ago. He recalls her explaining she neutralized a dangerous board to keep him safe. The orange-haired woman offered her hand and introduced herself as Rosietti. He remembers being captivated by her grace and gentle kindness.
He admits he never expected to see her again after her death.
He is stunned that she has returned in the form of a small child. He remains baffled by the mystery of how she returned to life.
He perceives all the gathered heads of house as potential enemies. He identifies Carrion as the most dangerous threat to her safety. A firm grip tightens his fist as he considers if the Empire is safer. He cherishes the memory of her saving him in his youth. A bewildered "huh" echoes from the grand, ornate White Palace. Rosianne is stunned to learn that the Empire has requested her.
Owen confirms her new status as the master of the relic angered the heads.
Owen decides to hide the group's knowledge of the Christopher.
He notes her ignorance of the resurrection crystal hidden within her body. He looks at her with concern, reminding her she is still a child.
Narrative text explains that House Fizzle has agreed to provide Rosianne a safe place to live, but her own wishes must always come first. Lord Owen asks Rosianne what she wants, leaving her momentarily speechless and hesitant as she struggles to find the right words. Carrion shouts that leaving his sister in the Empire is absolutely ridiculous, while Rosianne begs him to remain still for now.
Carrion declares he will stay in the Empire with her, but Lord Owen notes that Transcendents cannot leave their territory without permission.
Carrion defiantly states he doesn't care about Empire laws or exceptions, regardless of what their father might say about the matter. A bold narrative bubble confirms that Carrion is never giving up on his sister.
Carrion stands protectively in front of Rosianne.
Narrative text warns that ignoring the demands of other househeads could escalate into a massive international problem beyond their families.
Carrion tries to dismiss the dilemma, but Rosianne asks her big brother to wait just a second before reacting any further.
Carrion looks stunned as Rosianne addresses Lord Owen, signaling that she has reached a final decision about her future.
Rosianne brightly announces she has made up her mind to spend every other year in the Empire to satisfy everyone.
A heavy silence fills the ornate room.
Carrion looks on in pained silence as Lord Owen thanks Rosianne for making what was clearly not an easy decision. Rosianne and Lord Owen stand together. The sound of quick running footsteps echoes through the palace as Rosianne calls out in search of her big brother. A bright moon hangs over the garden as Rosianne's voice calls out for her brother in the middle of the night. Rosianne searches the dark garden and finally spots Carrion sitting alone and hunched over on a stone ledge. Approaching him gently, Rosianne asks her brother if he is so upset that he doesn't even want to talk to her anymore. Rosianne puts a comforting hand on his back, asking why he is sulking and urging him to cheer up already.
A single tear rolls down Carrion's face.
Rosianne gasps in shock, asking if he is actually crying as Carrion quietly says her name with a pained look. Carrion looks at her with red, watery eyes and asks if she is truly planning to stay here in the Empire. Chibi Rosianne looks flustered and uncertain. Carrion looks down with a pained expression and asks his sister a simple, heart-wrenching question.
Why? Gripping her hand with a firm, desperate squeeze, Carrion reminds her that she promised they would always stay together. Rosianne offers a small smile, telling him that the reason for her difficult choice is actually quite deep.
Narrative text reveals that while she was reborn as Rosianne Wiegnack, her original life began in a place called Kilgis.
She explains that by the time Carrion is an independent adult, her powers should have returned to their former glory. When that time comes, she intends to return to Kilgis and uncover the true circumstances behind her previous death.
She vows to reclaim everything her past identity, Rosietti, lost to the one who was responsible for her murder. Looking at her pained brother, Rosianne realizes she cannot share the complex truth of her past life with him just yet.
Rosianne calls out to her big brother as she leans in to offer him more comfort and reassurance. Taking his hands in hers, Rosianne reminds Carrion that he is the only real family she truly has.
She tells him that seeing him so deeply saddened causes her own heart to ache with pain as well.
Carrion looks at her with a look of pure, pleading desperation and asks her to change her mind and return home.
Chibi bubbles show Rosianne trying to stay positive, explaining that she'll still spend every other year in the kingdom with him.
Carrion shouts in frustration, realizing that the Empire will now be stealing half of her life away from him. Narrative text notes that Rosianne has forgotten one very important aspect regarding her brother's intense personality.
Carrion looks up with a gaze of absolute devotion, confessing that he simply cannot live his life without her by his side.
As Carrion kisses her hand, Rosianne realizes the depth of his treasure and love for her is bigger than she ever imagined.
Carrion clutches his head in anguish, weeping as he admits that he is definitely not okay with her leaving him behind.
He continues to cry while her narrative reflects that she now has her kind big brother and the head of house. Rosianne beams with a bright smile. Narrative text over a family crest confirms that House Kilgis is where her soul belonged in her past life.
A cold flashback reveals House Kilgis as a place of constant competition where there was never any such thing as affection.
A formal narrative frame highlights Rosianne's realization that her real family consists of her big brother and Lord Owen.
Rosianne offers a gentle, affectionate smile. Rosianne offers to grant Carrion one single wish, causing him to ask in surprise if she is truly serious.
She smiles happily, telling him he can have anything he wants as long as it's something she is able to do.
Carrion holds her hand and tells her that he will save his special wish for another time in the future. Carrion holds Rosianne's hand firmly and demands she make a solemn promise to him right now on Wignok's star. A chibi scene shows a weeping Carrion being comforted by a smiling Rosianne against a soft purple background. Rosianne gazes into her brother's tearful red eyes and formally swears the vow he asked for. Surrounded by a radiant garden of yellow roses, the siblings share a deeply emotional and tender embrace. They lean in close with matching affectionate smiles, finding peace in their shared promise and mutual love.
Narrative text explains that from that day forward, Rosianne began her new life alternating years between the Empire and the Kingdom.
Chibi Rosianne hops through a magical golden portal with her suitcase, noting how easy travel is with such powers. Lush green leaves and a bright, sparkling sky signal the start of a peaceful transition in her journey. The grand, teal-domed palace of the Empire stands as a magnificent backdrop to her arrival. Arriving at the gates with her luggage, Rosianne is greeted by the tall, red-haired Lady Regina. Lady Regina welcomes her warmly, triggering Rosianne's memories of her past life as Rosietti in the land of Kilgus.
Rosianne beams at her host and expresses her gratitude for being looked after during her stay in the Empire.
The two women stand together in the sun-drenched gardens, marking the beginning of Rosianne's imperial visit. Rosianne looks strikingly elegant and mature as she smiles confidently in her new surroundings. A terrifying flashback shows a silver-haired boy with glasses declaring the end of her previous life as Rosietti. The dream turns violent as Rosietti is struck down in an arena, leaving her lifeless on the stone floor. A dark, blurred transition captures the lingering horror and disorientation of her recurring nightmare. Rosianne wakes in a cold sweat, clutching her bedsheets as she curses the man named Alphion for his betrayal. Eerie red eyes glow through the shadows, representing the lingering trauma and threats from her past. She sits up with a sudden "ah" as she finally breaks free from the clutches of the terrifying dream. A thought bubble reveals her frustration at experiencing the same vision of her death over and over again. Rosianne looks distressed and weary, noting that these dark omens have been appearing much more frequently of late. The Star Relic's sword appears before her, causing a startled Rosianne to address it as Great Annihilation. The blonde spirit of the relic rests her chin on her hand, looking bored and unimpressed by the morning. The chibi spirit roughly wakes her by striking the bed and shouting for her to get up, much to Rosianne's annoyance. When the spirit demands they go to the training grounds immediately, chibi Rosianne is shocked by the early hour. Watching the relic spirit hover nearby, Rosianne sighs and realizes that her demanding nature hasn't changed a bit. The scene shifts to the expansive training grounds where many knights are engaged in their morning sword drills. Rosianne waves a bright greeting, catching the eye of the dark-haired Lord Owen as he oversees the practice. She approaches Owen while carrying her sword, looking ready to begin her training despite the suddenness of the day. Rosianne wonders why she keeps finding herself in the same repetitive situations during her visits. A memory shows Rosianne playfully patting the head of a young, pouting, dark-haired boy in brown attire.
The young boy insists that she is his fiancé because his father said so, leaving her completely baffled. Back in the present, the adult Lord Owen stares at her with crossed arms and asks if she is even paying attention.
Rosianne quickly focuses on him, claiming she is only there for the sake of the relic's training requirements. Lord Owen looks at her with a skeptical side-eye, clearly not buying her sudden excuse for being there. A green crystal glows faintly inside her chest as she clutches her sword, a hidden power she seems to ignore. A private thought questions if she should be more concerned about the inherent dangers of her situation. A sinister, shadowy silhouette of a man with glasses looms behind a chibi Rosianne, biding his time to strike. Lord Owen has been diligently sending letters and visiting the Majesty to ensure her protection. He repeatedly asks for measures to keep the dangerous individual named Layla from ever reaching the Empire. Owen bows formally before a white-haired royal figure, tirelessly advocating for the safety of his companion.
Rosianne is quickly distracted by a passing butterfly, much to the exasperation of the watchful Lord Owen.
She giggles happily at the insect while Owen thinks about how she truly has zero sense of danger.
Lord Owen sighs and wonders if she is genuinely unaware that the resurrection crystal is hidden inside her body.
Oblivious to the weight of his thoughts, Rosianne smiles in the sunshine and thinks about seeing her loved ones.
She closes her eyes and enjoys the peaceful garden, feeling completely at home in the Empire.
A humorous daydream shows a blonde Carrion wearing bunny ears and weeping as he calls out her nickname. A surreal, dark transition with purple energy and cobwebs signals an abrupt change in the atmosphere.
The night sky hangs over a silent cathedral as a terrified voice screams for someone to get away from them.
An executioner cries out in terror as a monstrous, dark purple shadow begins to consume him from the waist up. A pained scream of "Kya!" echoes as blood spatters across a darkened, grainy background. Standing amidst a shower of dark petals, the blonde carrion looks down coldly with blood smeared across his cheek. As Lord Owen approaches from the shadows of the cathedral, he casually asks the young man if his grim meal is finished. The sinister purple energy dissipates from the floor, vanishing into the darkness beneath Carrion's feet with a soft hiss. Wiping the blood from his face with a cheerful smile, Carrion greets Lord Owen with a bright and innocent expression. Lord Owen crosses his arms, questioning if such a violent method of suppressing star fever isn't a bit excessive. Korean dismisses the concern with a closed-eye smile, asserting that he has never targeted a single innocent person. Looking at a blood-stained statue, he explains that he only disposes of criminals who have already received heavy sentences. Lord Owen turns his gaze away, acknowledging that the kingdom's crime rate has indeed plummeted due to these actions. Amidst swirling purple patterns and dark flowers, Lord Owen worries that the boy is becoming dangerously unstable in his sister's absence. In a chibi exchange, Carrion asks if Owen traveled all this way just to lecture him, which the older man denies. Reaching into the folds of his cloak, Lord Owen mentions that he actually came to deliver a specific gift. He holds out a crisp white envelope sealed with red wax, telling Carrion to take it. Carrion's eyes light up with pure joy as he realizes the letter is from his beloved sister Rosie. Noting that it has only been a week since her last message, Owen watches as Carrion hurriedly walks away to read it. Surrounded by blue flowers and sparkling light, Carrion eagerly opens the letter, wondering what his sister has to say. The letter begins with a simple and warm greeting, asking the big brother how he has been doing lately. In a sunny garden, the orange-haired Rosianne writes her reply, admitting that his previous letters made her heart ache with longing. She reassures him that she will be returning home in just 1 month, urging him to be patient for a little longer. Closing with a burst of affection, she confesses that she wants to see him more than anyone else in the entire world. A vision of a radiant, grown-up Rosianne appears in a field of daisies, reaching out with a bright and happy smile. Carrion looks at the paper with a tender smirk, feeling comforted that his sister shares his intense feelings of devotion. Hugging the letter tightly to his chest amidst blooming flowers, Carrion whispers a promise to see his princess very soon. The blonde spirit of the relic floats playfully, offering a giant glass of red wine and encouraging her master to drink. Rosianne looks on with confusion, questioning why the spirit is carrying a drink she cannot even physically consume herself. A tiny chibi Rosianne politely but firmly declines the offer to get drunk on the atmosphere. Standing near a balcony, Rosianne decides she needs to clear her head with a walk through the palace grounds. The relic spirit protests loudly in a chibi thought bubble, begging her master to stay and play with her instead. The scene shifts to a peaceful day under a clear blue sky, framed by the lush green leaves of the imperial trees. Reflecting on her situation, Rosianne notes that her life of traveling between territories has now entered its 4th year. She lets out a tired sigh, complaining to herself about how incredibly dull life in the Empire can be. She finds some comfort in the presence of Louise, though a memory shows him grumpily demanding she stop clinging to him. Spotting a familiar figure in a red and brown uniform nearby, Rosianne's eyes follow him as he passes through the courtyard. Narrative text recalls a time when her past self, Rosietti, was famously known as the Rose Princess of Kilkis. Rosianne freezes in absolute shock, her eyes wide as she overhears a shocking revelation from the people nearby. Sweat beads on her forehead as she wonders if she could have possibly misheard the mention of her old title. She watches 2 handsome knights conversing, identifying them as young men who were her peers in her previous life. A wave of regret washes over her as she thinks about how she never even tried to speak with them back then. Overhearing that one of them was actually in her fan club, a stunned chibi Rosianne can hardly believe such a thing existed. A somber flashback shows a lonely Rosietti walking past groups of students who she thought were intentionally avoiding her. The truth is revealed as the students are shown blushing and hiding their faces, too intimidated by her beauty to approach. Rosianne stops in her tracks, the delicate lace and fabric of her dress rustling as she enters a moment of deep reflection. Narrative text highlights her growing realization that her current face is beginning to look exactly like it did in her past. Staring at her reflection in the shimmering water of a fountain, she is haunted by the familiar ghost of Rosietti staring back. She rests her chin on her hand and sighs, wondering if the body naturally changes to match the essence of the soul. The sound of a crisp, sudden step startles her as a voice mockingly asks if she is busy admiring her own beauty. Rosianne looks up in shock to find the silver-haired, bespectacled Alphine standing before her with a confident smirk. In a flustered chibi reaction, Rosianne tries to play it cool by claiming she was merely observing the fountain's design. Alphine casually takes a seat right next to her on the stone ledge, ignoring her annoyed request for him to keep his distance. Alphine reminisces about a family member he lived with like they were twins. Alphine reveals her name was Rosietti, leaving Rosianne suspicious of his sudden interest and motives. He describes the girl's beauty as so dazzling that it was almost painful to behold. A gentle hand reaches out to touch Rosianne's vibrant orger. Alphine notes the strangeness of the resemblance while Rosianne reels from being compared to her past self. Rosianne brushes off the tension with a forced and awkward laugh. In a chibi moment, Rosianne politely claims to be honored while privately finding Alphine's behavior incredibly creepy. Alphine reveals a grim secret, stating he buried her coffin with his own hands 16 years ago. He notes with a calm expression that the coffin was found completely empty a few years back. A memory of the unchained and empty coffin leaves Rosianne frozen in complete shock. Horrified, Rosianne wonders if her corpse was stolen or if something even more impossible occurred. Realization hits as she stares into his eyes, concluding that this current body is actually her original one. Alphine offers to finish his story, sensing her deep surprise at the information he just shared. Rosianne remains on high alert, trying to deduce Alphine's true angle in revealing these secrets. A heavy silence follows as she questions if he has truly figured out her identity. Alphine leans in close and tells her to meet him at the observatory later tonight. He promises to explain the full truth there, his gaze turning sharp and more serious.
Alphine waits for her response amidst the blooming flowers of the garden.
Night falls over the Imperial grounds as someone walks toward the towering observatory under a full moon. Blue floral patterns mark a transition in the quiet and somber evening atmosphere. Wrapped in a dark blue cloak, Rosianne arrives at the massive, ornate doors of the observatory. She admits she actually came to meet him, though she fears it might be an elaborate trap. Stealing her resolve to get answers, a sharp click sounds as she opens the door to enter. Alphine, with his long silver hair flowing freely, welcomes her with a confident and knowing smile. He calls her by her past name, Rosietti, causing Rosianne to recoil in absolute shock. A chibi Rosianne tries to maintain her current identity, but Alphine asks if she intends to keep acting. Alphine questions why she would bother coming at this hour if the story didn't involve her personally. Rosianne tries to dismiss his claims by suggesting he has a wild and overactive imagination. Alphine reveals that the powerful Transcendents have already identified her as the missing princess, Rosietti. A vision shows the group of 4 formidable individuals who have been monitoring her true identity. Rosianne is stunned to realize that her deepest secret is known by such dangerous people. Alphine explains that she wasn't reborn, but the resurrection crystals simply rewound her body to childhood. He moves closer, identifying the artifact responsible as Layla's specific star relic. Rosianne remembers meeting the man named Layla and how puzzled he had looked at the sight of her. She finally understands the reason behind that confusion as Alphine addresses her by her childhood nickname, Rosie. The two stand in the center of the moonlit observatory, the air thick with revealed truths. Alphine touches her hair again, noting that her mana warps in direct reaction to his proximity. He asks if she finally understands the undeniable proof of who she really is. A vision of the former princess appears with a glowing green crystal pulsating inside her chest. Rosianne drops her facade, warning Alphine not to approach while summoning a massive glowing magic circle. A heavy thump echoes as Alphine is forced to his knees, shocked by her sudden and aggressive retaliation. Staring up in surprise, Alphine realizes that her fierce and rough personality hasn't changed at all. Rosianne angrily asks if he expected a happy reunion after he killed her and stole her planetarium. Alphine pleads for her to calm down as she holds up the glowing green planetarium relic. She reflects on the complex magical formulas she had spent years refining in her past life. A sudden rush of wind whips around her as she manifests a series of advanced magical spells. Rosianne commands the magical energy to bind the silver-haired man where he stands. Alphine groans in pain as the glowing rings of mana constrict tightly around his torso and arms. Standing over him with the relic, Rosianne demands to know why he used a murder spell on her. Alphine desperately denies the accusation, but Rosianne tells him not to even try lying his way out. A memory depicts Alphine and Rosietti growing up together as closely as if they were twins. Dark, ominous thoughts reflect a deep sense of betrayal and the weight of intense hatred. Standing over her bound captive, Rosianne continues her interrogation in the moonlit observatory. A sudden, startling realization strikes Rosianne as she pieces together a hidden truth. She questions if Alphine's alleged betrayal was actually petty revenge for being rejected by her past self. Rosianne brutally dismisses any romantic potential, claiming the scrawny silver-haired man is essentially family and not her type. While Alphine continues to plead his innocence regarding her death, a chibi Rosianne remains unconvinced. Rosianne charges a glowing magic circle, threatening to hurt Alphine if he continues to withhold the truth. The noise of the argument echoes through the night as Carrion approaches the area.
From his hiding place, Alphine fruitlessly swears that he was not the one who committed the murder.
Covered in bruises and bandages, Alphine desperately suggests she check the planetarium's memory log for proof. Rosianne stares down at Alphine, who has suddenly lost consciousness after his frantic explanation.
She dismisses his dramatic collapse, noting that he only received a few minor punches. A chibi Rosianne pokes the slumped Alphine to see if he is truly unresponsive.
She nervously coughs, wondering if perhaps her physical retaliation was a bit too excessive.
Turning her focus back to the case, Rosianne considers the importance of the relic's memory function.
Rosianne recalls that her planetarium relic likely continued recording events even after her original body died.
Realizing the artifact holds the definitive proof of the incident, she prepares to examine its records immediately.
Her investigation is cut short by a sudden step and the sound of her name being called. Rosianne is shocked to find Carrion standing in the observatory while Alpheon lies bound on the floor behind her. Seeing her beloved older brother, she breathes out a surprised greeting.
Carrion's expression softens as he asks why his sister is out alone at such an hour.
Carrion mentions receiving her letter, prompting Rosianne to quickly hide the glowing relic behind her back.
He steps closer, reminding her that she had written about her intense desire to see him.
Carrion pulls Rosianne into a warm embrace, finally reunited after their long separation. He whispers affectionately that he missed his princess just as much as she missed him.
Pulling away, Rosianne frantically asks if he secured a residency permit before entering the territory.
Carrion looks genuinely confused by the sudden change in topic and the mention of paperwork.
Narrative text notes that powerful transcendents are legally restricted from crossing borders without official authorization.
Carrion casually tells her not to worry about such trivial details. He explains with a bright smile that he intended to submit the required paperwork tomorrow morning.
Rosianne realizes with horror that her brother is currently present as an illegal trespasser.
Sensing her frustration, Carrion puts on a pitiful expression and asks if she isn't happy to see him.
Carrion is visibly relieved when Rosianne quickly reassures him that she is indeed happy he came.
Despite her annoyance, Rosianne privately admits that his pleading eyes should be considered a crime.
She feels overwhelmed by the mess of having to hide her brother while also investigating the planetarium log.
Carrion's attention shifts to the bound, unconscious man lying in a heap on the observatory floor.
Rosianne laughs nervously, trying to downplay the suspicious sight of a kidnapped noble.
She pretends to help Alphine, urging the unconscious man not to sleep in such an uncomfortable place.
Rosianne remains skeptical of Alphine's claims and decides she cannot simply take his word for it.
A glowing magic circle forms as Rosianne prepares a spell to rewrite Alphine's recent memories. She intends to make him believe he never saw her and that he simply lost his planetarium relic.
Rosianne leaves the memory-wiped Alphine behind as she prepares to lead Carrion to a safe location.
She takes her brother's hand, telling him it is time for them to leave the scene.
They walk together through the dark, with Rosianne emphasizing the need to stay hidden until morning. Carrion asks where exactly she plans on hiding him for the rest of the night.
Rosianne smiles cheerfully, promising that she knows the absolute perfect place to keep him. The black-haired Lord Fissel stands at his door, looking unimpressed by the late-night visitors.
Rosianne clasps her hands together, begging Fissel to host her little bunny for a single night.
Fissel tries to shut the gate on them, but Rosianne desperately clings to the bars, begging for his cooperation.
Carrion remarks that being turned away after 4 years is quite harsh, while the black-haired man notes with a shudder that the pair has a lot of nerve.
Chibi, Rosianne, and Carrion desperately beg Lord Fizzle for help, leaving the black-haired man feeling thoroughly annoyed by their antics.
Rosianne offers a month's worth of her snacks as a bribe, causing the black-haired man to let out a disgusted grunt as he recoils from the offer. Rosianne calls out a cheerful goodbye as she leaves in her carriage, ignoring the black-haired man's frantic shout for her not to leave him alone with Carrion. Inside the manor, the black-haired man leads Carrion down a long hallway and sternly tells him to stay quiet until morning. A small, quick tap sounds as Carrion thanks his companion for the help.
Carrion gazes intensely at the black-haired man, asking if there is anything specific he can do to properly make up for the favor.
The blonde-haired man gives him one chance to survive against his hand.
The black-haired man tells him to save those thoughts for his dreams while privately clenching his fist in irritation at Carrion Wignack.
Staring down at Carrion, the black-haired man vows silently that he will not let the blonde man have his way.
As the carriage rolls through the dark forest, Rosianne sighs in relief and reflects on her newfound sense of safety.
Surrounded by golden flowers and sparkles, Rosianne prepares to check the memories stored within her planetarium relic. A grand, ornate white cathedral stands tall under the pale evening sky.
Rosianne enters the memory of a funeral, looking around the cathedral and wondering if this is the last recorded event. She observes several disciples of Kilgis gathered in mourning at her past self's funeral.
A young boy with brown hair and golden eyes looks on with a deeply sorrowful expression. The young boy leans over the casket to place a bundle of white lilies on the deceased girl.
He softly tells Miss Rosietti to rest in peace while looking down at her body in the coffin.
A red-haired woman orders Alfian to retrieve the planetarium relic from Rosietti's body. The younger Alfian looks hesitant and breaks into a sweat, noting that it is customary for the artifact to be buried with its owner. The red-haired woman dismisses his concerns, claiming that Rosietti's life research is far too valuable to be buried with her. Rosianne is stunned by the realization that her master was the one who had been keeping the planetarium all along. She admits she was convinced Alfian had stolen it and decides to look further back for the truth behind her death. The memory shifts to the moment of her death as a younger Alfian runs toward her fallen body with a scream of agony. Alfian weeps as he holds the bleeding girl, desperately pleading his innocence as his master approaches the scene. Rosianne reflects that Alfian's reaction was too genuine to be an act as a complex magic circle appears in the memory. She recognizes the spell Alfian used and is confused to find it was actually a binding incantation. Wide-eyed with shock, she questions why a mere binding spell would have been used during such a crisis. A terrifying shadow with glowing red eyes looms in the background of the memory vision. Rosianne stares at the formless purple and black entity and wonders what it could possibly be. Gasping for air, Rosianne jolts awake in the carriage as the memory vision ends with a sharp jolt. Clenching her hand over her chest, she processes the strange and terrifying entity she witnessed in her past life. Rosianne is determined, believing she has finally found a solid lead on the true murderer. In the present, the red-haired woman slams her desk in a rage after learning that Rosietti's planetarium was lost. Alfian stares at her with a calm expression and states that he didn't actually lose the artifact. The red-haired woman senses a memory manipulation spell on him and correctly guesses that Rosietti is responsible for it. Alfian confirms her suspicion as the scene transitions with delicate purple and blue floral patterns and a heavy sigh. Sitting back in her chair, the red-haired woman lets out a tired breath and wonders what Rosietti is currently planning. She trails off, considering if she will ultimately be forced into a difficult decision. The red-haired woman wonders if she must kill Rosietti again with her own hands while Carrion watches from a distance. Dark silhouettes of trees against a gray sky mark a somber shift in the evening atmosphere. Rosianne sits on a tall library ladder, deeply absorbed in a thick research book amidst blooming yellow flowers. She lets out a frustrated sigh, unable to find a single clue about the monster from her memories. She recalls that the entity's eyes were red like lava and that it lacked any permanent, fixed shape. Rosianne remembers that it was pitch black and looked exactly like a living shadow. A sudden, sharp realization strikes her as she connects the pieces of her forgotten past. She recalls seeing a very similar monster 4 years ago during the Great Annihilation event. A vision shows the dark entity manifesting from the shadow behind her brother, Carrion. A sudden chill runs through her as she identifies the terrifying creature as an existence known as collapsed chaos. Looking for more answers, Rosianne walks through the massive library to research the nature of the collapsed chaos. Rosianne reflects on her hypothesis and the danger lurking near her and her brother, concluding that she cannot simply wait around. Determined to act, she decides she must find her brother immediately and rushes out of the room. The scene transitions to the exterior of a massive, opulent white mansion bathed in morning light. Inside, the black-haired Fizzle informs a surprised Rosianne that her brother already left for the castle earlier that day. A chibi panel shows Carrion wandering at the castle, wondering where she went, as Rosianne realizes they have missed each other. As she prepares to head to the castle herself, Fizzle points to her book and asks what it is. She shows him her illustrated encyclopedia of mysterious otherworld creatures, explaining her sudden interest in researching monsters. When he asks why she is so interested, she notes that her very future depends on what she finds. An open page in the book details the characteristics of a small, tusked boar-type monster. Faisal tells her the creature isn't scary at all and asks her to stop shoving the book in his face. Rosianne gives a cheerful laugh, but Fizzle watches her with a suspicious and observant gaze. His expression turns serious as he asks how she could possibly have known about that specific creature. A grainy flashback shows a young, black-haired boy falling before a boar while a girl in a green dress runs to help. Rosianne mentions that there was also one other person present during that incident many years ago. She immediately realizes she made a grave mistake by revealing knowledge only her past self would possess. Faisal stares at her intensely and asks if her memories as Miss Rosietti have finally returned to her. Resigned to the truth, Rosianne snaps the book shut and admits there is no point in hiding it anymore. She stands before him in silence as he addresses her directly by her past name, Rosietti. Rosianne offers a warm smile and remarks on how much he has grown since they were children. Faisal scolds her for being as careless as ever, worried about the danger she would be in if anyone else knew. He warns her to be more cautious from now on, especially since Layla intends to dissect her for her secrets.
A vision shows a crystal fusing with a silhouette as Roseanne realizes they want to cut her open to retrieve it.
She asks if this means she can use the crystal's power freely, which Fizzle confirms is theoretically possible.
The realization that she could possess such immense power leaves Roseanne looking completely stunned. She sees a vision of a hand being healed, understanding that she could potentially use this power to save others.
Roseanne reflects on the gravity of being hunted by transcendents who crave such a unique and powerful ability.
Faisal reassures her that his father, Lord Owen, is keeping the other transcendents in check to protect her.
Roseanne worries that if the Empire discovers her true identity, she might be executed for illegally possessing two different powers.
Faisal clenches his fist and vows that he and the entire House Faisal will protect her from any threat. He looks at her with a solemn and unwavering gaze, reaffirming his loyalty and commitment.
Roseanne looks back at him with a soft and grateful expression, moved by his promise. She walks closer to him and asks if he truly intends to be on her side through everything.
Roseanne gently touches his face as she thanks him for choosing to support her despite the risks.
Faisal quickly turns his head away, blushing as he tells her she doesn't need to make such a big deal of it.
Roseanne waves a cheerful goodbye as she leaves, while Faisal remains behind, looking flustered by their interaction.
Once alone, her expression turns somber as she admits to herself that things have just become a lot more complicated.
She ponders the difficult choice ahead, continuing her life as Roseanne or fully embracing her past as Rosietti.
In a dark laboratory, the magenta-haired woman gazes out at the night sky and whispers to the stars.
She questions why such a special talent and an ominous prophecy were bestowed upon a child like Rossetti.
A sudden chill runs through her as she senses a terrifying, overwhelming presence manifesting in the room behind her. A massive purple-scaled serpent with glowing red eyes looms over her, radiating an immense and crushing pressure. The woman screams in absolute terror as a dark, formless entity rises from the floor to confront her. A piercing scream echoes from a high, Gothic clock tower that stands silhouetted against a stormy night sky. At a dining table, Roseanne is horrified to learn that Lady Regina was attacked and remains in critical condition. She wonders in shock who could have possibly been powerful enough to push the head of Kilgis to such a state.
The black-haired man informs her that they are currently investigating the alibis of every transcendent in the region.
He nervously clarifies that they don't actually suspect any of the transcendents, as they are seated with Carrion.
Roseanne privately thinks that only another transcendent would be capable of fighting one on equal footing.
Carrion sets his teacup down on the table with a soft, deliberate click as the conversation continues.
With a calm and slightly amused smile, Carrion notes that he is also a target of the current investigation.
Roseanne is stunned to hear that even Carrion is under investigation.
She immediately defends her brother, claiming they were together the previous night. Carrion gently takes her hand, offering a quiet, reassuring comfort. He stands up with a calm smile, agreeing to go and cooperate with the questioning.
A sudden clatter sounds as Carrion rises, asking Roseanne about her own plans for the day. Carrion suggests she visit the injured Lady Regina. The suggestion leaves Roseanne looking completely taken aback and surprised. Noting her reaction, Carrion smiles warmly and affirms that it is a wise course of action.
He gives her a tender pat, his affection for his sister clear in his gaze.
Roseanne soon arrives at the designated room, where two guards in red uniforms wait.
One of the men looks hesitant, apologizing as he explains the restrictions on visitors.
Clasping her hands over her heart, Roseanne pleads her case, mentioning Regina's deep care for her. She begs for just a brief moment to see her, while the guard looks to Carrion for guidance. A soft creak echoes as the door opens, and Roseanne finally steps into the quiet room. Footsteps thud softly on the wood as she approaches the bed and whispers to her master. She is struck by how sickly pale the magenta-haired woman's face has become. A heavy thump resonates in her chest as she pulls the covers back and sees the severe wounds. Horrified by the dark magical energy, she wonders what could have possibly caused such damage. Trembling and covering her mouth, she feels a desperate, overwhelming urge to help. She recalls Fizzle explaining that she might be able to utilize the crystal's power. A memory clarifies that the artifact would theoretically heal any injury on her body instantly.
Fizzle had noted that with the proper knowledge, she could extend that healing to others.
Realizing the potential within herself, Roseanne's eyes widen with a sudden surge of hope. She resolves to try, determined to use every bit of power at her disposal. Roseanne tries to channel the light into Regina's chest, but collapses in despair when nothing activates. A voice from the hallway interrupts, informing her that her 10 minutes are up. She quickly grabs the planetarium artifact, deciding to copy the master's memories instead. As the guard insists she leave, she frantically begs for just 3 more minutes of time. Complex magic circles glow as she transfers the data, hoping to identify the attacker. Later, Carrion waves to her with a bright smile, calling her name as he approaches. Rosianne acknowledges him quietly as he climbs the stairs to meet her. Carrion pulls her into a warm hug, telling her not to ruin her beauty with such sadness.
A soft, relieved sigh escapes her as she leans into his chest, finding comfort in his presence.
She realizes that she has unconsciously begun to rely on him more than she ever expected.
As they walk toward the carriage, Carrion warns her to watch her step and offers his support.
She thinks back on the unconditional love and kindness he has shown her since they met. Surrounded by the soft scent of flowers, she wonders if Carrion is her only true ally.
Inside the carriage, they sit together in a silence that feels heavy with unspoken words.
Carrion notices her serious expression and asks what is bothering her. Her feet fidget nervously as she wonders how to break the truth to him without causing shock.
She leans forward with a look of intense resolve, ready to reveal her deepest secret.
As the carriage rolls along the path, Carrion asks if she actually remembers a life before this one.
She thinks of Regina and the white-haired boy from her past life in Kilgis. Looking him straight in the eyes, she confesses that she is the reincarnation of Rosietti. A sharp thump-thump sounds in her ears as she waits for his reaction, fearing he won't believe her.
To her immense relief, Carrion smiles kindly and thanks her for sharing the truth with him. Rosianne is stunned, blinking in disbelief that he accepted her story so easily. He looks at her with absolute sincerity, promising that he believes everything she says.
Carrion boops her nose playfully, asking if he or her old family was kinder to her.
In a flustered chibi moment, Rosianne complains that his question is completely ridiculous after her confession.
Rosianne smiles softly, deeply moved that she is being accepted for who she truly is.
A quiet sense of peace follows her confession, leaving her grateful for the courage to speak up. With a determined look, the orange-haired girl resolves to personally track down whoever was behind the attack on Lady Regina. The blonde-haired man asks about the memories stored in the planetarium, while Rosianne explains her plan to use them.
He offers a supportive and calm expression, his red eyes reflecting a deep understanding of her situation.
His attention turns to the events of the previous day as he taps his knee in deep contemplation.
Rosianne invites her brother to view the master's memories with her, and he readily agrees to join her search for the truth.
The golden artifact erupts in a brilliant light as Rosianne vows to uncover the attacker's identity in her role as a disciple.